about the functions with global, local, and non-local variables. See, actually, when we define a function with variable, then those variable scope is limited to that functions. In Python, the scope of a variable in the portion of a program where the variable is declared. So parameters and variables defined inside a function are not visible from outside the function. So hence, it is called the variable's local scope. And I kindly have a note that the inner functions does not have access to the outer function's local scope. And when we are executing a function, the life of the variable is up to running time. So once we return from the function, those variables get destroyed. So functions does not need to remember the value of a variable from its previous call. Let me just see the first one, global variable. See here, dear friends, in Python, a variable declared outside of the function or in the global scope is known as the global variable. This means that a global variable can be accessed inside or outside of the function. So let me just see it with an example. See here, dear friends, this global variable, which we are assigning a value of 999. Here, we are just defining the function one and we want to print the calling that functions that value in first function and the same global variable. Next, again, let me just define one more function, function 2, where there also the same global variable. We are just making use of it and we want to make the call of function 1 and function 2. Now, what would be happen? And when I'm just calling this function 1, it just go to the function 1 and just prints the line and come out of the loop. And second, again, it just make the function 2 call. Yeah, it just goes to the defined function 2 and execute the statement under the function 2. Yeah, here it is also the same print function making the global variable. Okay, let us just execute and see here, dear friends, the same global variable. Here it is declared, which is declared globally, now being accessed with both the inside of the functions also. And see here next, there was an example where x is equal to global, which is a string value. Okay, and here we are just making, that is defining a function where print x inside. Okay, so here we are just making the x calling, which is in global, and again function, we just want to call the function which we defined here, and again we are just making the same x to be used or utilized in the outer function too. And we are having how it just being executing is both the strings, both the exact print function, it would just give execute the same global only. Yeah, see here, dear friends, see when we created the x as a global variable and defined a function to print the global variable x, finally we call the function which will print the value of x. And if we also making it in outside, yeah, here also making the same global. Okay, print the value of the x. Okay, now see here, we need one more information. What if you want to change the value of x inside a function? So see here x is a global and I just want to change the value of x here. And what would happen when you just make use of that variable when you just call it from the global? Okay, so see here, the exact, let I just execute and explain it to you for your information. See here, we just get an error. Why this error? Because the Python treat x as a local variable here inside the function, and x is also not defined inside the function here. And to make this, we use the global keyword. We have to use it. And once for all, if we just specify that as a global, then we can just make use of that as a global variable and separately make use of whether this is inside the loop or outside the loop, or inside the function or outside the function. Okay, let I just make it with one more example. See here, dear friends, here we are having a global variable, a global underscore lang, which is just specifying data science. Okay, now I'm having a local language which is Python. Okay, so now I just want to print the function a local lang when I just want to call this uh, var scope test. Okay, so when I'm just calling this function var scope test, this statement which is under the function defined as var scope test would be displayed. Okay, sorry, executed. So we would just get the exact value of Python to be executed. Okay, next we are outside the function now. If I just want to make print global language, yeah, what is global language? It is data science, so that is also going to give the execution of output. And now print local underscore lang. See, actually this is inside the it is defined inside the function, but when you just want to make use of the function, the exact variable outside the function, yeah, surely it is just going to show the error. That is, local lang is not defined. So we can't just use this local language outside the function. Whereas this global language, it is both common to the, both you can just make utilized inside the function and outside the function. Okay, now let I just make you one more example. See, a is equal to 90. Here the variable which is defined outside the function, so it is a global. And again the same variable a which is defined inside the function print data. Okay, which is defined inside the print data, and here the exact value of a is 6. Okay, b is equal to 30, and print a comma b, where we want to just make use of this a and b, the values. Now, when I just want to call the print data, that is the A and B, what would be my output? What would be on my output? Here it would be the 6 and 30. Okay, so 6 and 30, because the exact function which it just shows inside the function which is local to that, it would be executed. And now print global A, print global A. So here if you just call the, or you make use of the variable a outside the function, so it won't just refer which was inside the print data defined function. So what is the global? A is equal to 90, that would be printed. And to be true, when you just call this local b, it is inside the function, so it won't be displayed, and here you receive an error. So that is b is not defined. So this is what the exact difference between the local and the global variable. Okay, let me just see what is local variable. See, a variable declared inside the function's body or in the local scope is known as the local variable. And if we try to access the local variable from the outside of the function, surely we will get the error as name error. So that is what how we used in the previous function also. We just got an error. And see here also, see, if you just want to make use of this function call of fun, and it is defined as a fun where y is equal to local. If you just print this y inside the function, if you just give or a return of value, yeah, here it would be returned as local. But when you just make use of the same y outside the function, you would receive an error. So the output shows an error because we are trying to access a local variable y in a global scope, whereas the local variable only works inside the function or local scope. And one more thing I just want to show you. See here, here the same example which we just previously make use of it. If I just give print y here, or if you just want to return a value, yeah, here it works because it is a local. It is a local. Okay, so where both the things which we just made use of global variable, and here we wanted to modify that function call inside the fun defined function, so it just works here. Okay, and next let me just make use of thing with an another example. See here, dear friends, function 1. Okay, here it is a local variable which is 999. Okay, yeah, here it is local to this function 1 defined it. Okay, and when I just call that function variable local sorry loc underscore var in function 2, it is not defined. Actually, it just shows an error because it is not global. It is local to function 1 only, and not for local for function 2, where it would not be get access for that. So here we would get executed value for function 1. Okay, but not function 2, because local variable is not defined for that exact function 2 defined variable. Okay, and let me just make a combination of both global and local variables. See here, where we will show how to use both the thing in a same code. Okay, for that what we have to use is the keyword. What is the keyword? Is in the sense global. See here, this x is equal to global, and I want to make use of that x value which is global inside the function here. So I just can make use of this global keyword. Okay, so global keyword and making use of it. See, dear friends, kindly just have a note of it. We declared x is equal to as a global and y as a local variable here, and in the function defined function, then we use a multiplication operator here to modify the global variable x, and we print the x and y. And see, whatever we just change the x, that is only for this local functionality. And even after calling the fun function, the value of x becomes global because we used the x into 2 to print 2 times the global. So global it just comes. After that we print the value of the local y, that is local. So here what would be the output is let I just execute global and local. So here for printing x it just makes global and global, and for y it just prints only local. Okay, fine. Let me just see one example making both the names. See here, dear friends, in the above code, we use the same name x for both global variable and local variable. We get a different result when we print the same variable, because the variable is declared in both scope. That is the local scope inside fun function and global scope outside fun function. But when we print the variable inside the fun, it outputs here. See here how it just outputs. Here I just want to get the value of x. Okay, and here I want to the value of x outside the defined function. So when we print the variable inside the fun function, it outputs as like local x. What would be the value of here? X is 19 because it is inside the function. So this is called the local scope of the variable. And when you just come here, when you just come out of the fun function, and if you want to print the variable outside the fun, it outputs global x, and here the value would be 9. And for your information, here the executed result is that. Okay, let me just have one more example related to the same thing. Kindly have a note of this. See here, dear friends, Here I'm just defining my function x is equal to 10 and print value inside the body function. Okay, here when I just call my x, here it would be 10 or 20. Here exactly it would be 10, but here this x is equal to 20, this is as the second line, but when on calling this function before it, it is the exact global. Okay, so first one, this is the initial, the value of x is 20 initially, and even though function my function changed the value x is equal to 10, it did not affect the value outside the function. So this is because the variable x inside the function is different, that is local to the function, from the one outside. So although they have the same names, that is x, but they have the same names, they are two different variables with different scopes. So one on the other hand, the variable outside the function which you just call here, value outside the function here x, it would be the 20. Because in order to modify the values of variables outside the function, they must be declared as global variables using the keyword global. So here whatever be, okay, so here what we just get is the inside the body of the function, the x is 10, and outside of the function it is 20. And next comes that the non-local variables. See here, dear friends, non-local variables are used in nested functions whose local scope is not defined. This means that the variable can be neither in neither in the local nor the global scope. So let's see an example of how a global variable is created in Python, and we can use non-local keyword to create non-local variables. And see here, dear friends, this is x1, which is the global variable, and we are just going to define the outer function x1 is equal to local and print variable type for outer function. Okay, so here x1, which you are just calling, this is apart from this. Okay, so here it is just only for these two lines. So this x1, which is even though variable type for outer function, here x1 is equal to local only. But when coming to the inner function, okay, when coming to the inner function, see here, dear friends, uh, this can be a non-local x1. So using this, you can just make use of whether it is an nested function, so it can be of neither inner nor global. Okay, and here x1 is equal to non-local, and if you are just printing this, we would just get the non-local as it is local for this inner function. And if you are calling this inner function, what would be the output? Surely it is non-local, because that x1, it is only be accessed to that of local function. And see, when you just call this outer function, okay, I just, for your information, first I execute it, and see here, dear friends, this outer function, when you just call it, first it just goes for this outer function and it just prints the local, because x1 is local to this number, it just comes out of it. And even though here it is comes to the next statement as variable type of inner, and here it prints non-local. Okay, and next, once for all, it just comes out of the whole definition of the function. And last, variable type of x1, it just prints the global variable. So this is what we just say is the nested inner function. We use non-local keywords to create the non-local variables. And kindly have a note, if we change the value of the non-local variable, the changes appears in the local variable only. And let me just see with one more example, dear friends. So here it is a definition of outer function x is equal to 999, And when just coming to the inner function, there it is nested with the same x, where here I'm just creating the variable with non-local keyword as x, and here the value is x is equal to 900. And kindly just see, if I just print this, yeah, surely the x value of this local is 900. And secondly, which it just comes, value of the x would just be in the 999. And even though when I just call the function of outer, so first it just 900 and then it is 999. Which is about function arguments and parameters. The argument is a value, a variable, or an object that we pass to the functions or the method we call. There are two types of data passed in the functions. One is arguments and parameters. The first type of data is the data passed in the function call, which is called arguments. The second type of data is the data received in the function definition, which is called as parameters. Arguments can be literals, variables, and expressions, where parameters must be variable to hold incoming values. Alternatively, arguments can be called as actual parameter or actual arguments, and parameters can be called as formal parameters or formal arguments. Let me just see about the Python function arguments. In Python, you can define a function that takes variable numbers of arguments. In this session, we are just going to learn to define such functions using default, keywords, and arbitrary arguments. There are two types of arguments that is allowed in Python. That is position argument, which is basic, and variable function arguments. And what is about this position arguments? See, dear friends, actually we have already seen about the user-defined functions, which is the one among the arguments which we learned about defining a function and calling it. And otherwise the function call will result in an error. So let me just see it with an example. See here, dear friends, when we just make use of a function, we defining a function, there are two types of things is there. One is here we are just having two parameters. One is name and message, and the function greet, which just has two parameters, function name and message. That is how it has to be called. And when since we have called these functions with two argument, it runs smoothly and we do not get any error. And if we call it with a different number of arguments, the interpreter will show an error message. So let me just see that's true with an example, and kindly let me just execute this first example. See here, dear friends, this function which a great, it has name and message as a parameter. So we are giving the name as Ajay, and what is the message? It is a good morning. Okay, so that is how it has to be. And here it was concatenated with a hello, and which is concatenated with a name that is provided as one among the parameter, and where the message that is also comes at a one among the parameter. And see here, dear friends, where here below one more example is there, where that function is a call to this function with one and no arguments along with their respective error message. We are just going to see here, we are, if we just have the same greet message, the function with only one parameter, and see, we know that is this exact name or message, where we are not giving only one parameter here within that, and see, missing one required position argument. Okay, one position argument, and defaultly whatever the exact message which you are just giving here, it is in the string. So as both the strings, both the parameters are in string, if you just provide it as an one or second one, whatever be, it is defaultly takes the first as like that, and specify the error as message one required, and position argument here it is message which is missing. Let me just give with no arguments, and see here, dear friends, here also we just get the error, that is missing two required positional argument, name and message. So here, that is what, if we are just need to provide when define the message with the define the function with the parameter, the same number of arguments parameters should be provided at the call also. And here one more function is that this example, it just shows that it is defining an add function where you are just providing two variable parameters, one is a and b, and it has to resulted with a minus b. And see here, dear friends, if you're just providing 90 and 30, what would be the output? Yeah, 90 minus 30. And when just comes if you're just providing 60 and 30, yeah, it has to give as 60 minus 30. Okay, that is how it has to. And see whenever you're just calling the function here, we are not just talking about the whether it is written or any other thing, just to make only the arguments unto that of parameter. So let me just see the output. Yeah, see here, 90 minus 30, it just resulted with 60, and 60 minus 30, it is resulted with 30. Okay, let me just go on with one more try. Okay, so see here, dear friends, here we are just having two parameters. Instead of two parameters, if we just provide three, okay, if we just provide 3, so it also shows an error, that is number of arguments. So even if it is increasing or decreasing the number of arguments, yeah, surely we would just get an error. And see here, kindly have a note of it, in the positional argument, number and position of argument must be matched. If we change the order, then the result may change. Also, if we change the number of arguments, then also we will get an error accordingly. Okay, let me just make it with a formal argument. And see here, dear friends, here we are just having a function, whether it is even odd, and what is the exact attribute, that is the parameter you are just giving. It has to be evaluated with an expression, that is model 2, which is equivalent to 0. If it's so, if the exact condition is satisfied, yeah, it is just going to print as even. If it is not satisfying, or if it results with false, it just goes on to the else, where it prints the odd. And kindly have a note of it, here we are just calling the same function call, where we are just giving different type of parameters, which is 6 and 9. And when on just making the 6 and 9, yeah, here one is even and one is odd, that is what the exact result is. Okay, one more example, nothing much different. Yeah, it is a cube, and when just making the cube, if it is just calling the function, and how it is just going to be is x into x into x. That is what, and here we are just having a return value y. So where it just returns the cube of the given value, and here we have to print it. And see here, we have assigned the exact variable to that of function call. So when on just printing or the direct assumption of this variable, it just prints the output of the given one. And here the cube of 2, so 2 is the exact value which we have to return the cube of that number, and it is resulted with 8. Okay, next there comes the variable function arguments. And see here, dear friends, up until now functions have a fixed number of arguments. So in Python, there are other way to define a function that can take variable number of arguments. There are three different forms of in this type, which is default argument, keyword argument, and arbitrary or variable length argument. And let me just see one by one. And the first one is the Python default argument. Default arguments are arguments that take the default value during the function call. If we do not pass any argument to the function, then the default argument will take place. So we can assign default values using the equal assign operator. And here it is the exact example is that, let me just see it with an example. See here, dear friends, so greet is the exact function that is defined, and here we are having two different parameters. One is name and message, and where the message here it is equal to good morning. So here name is fixed argument and message is a variable argument, where this can change it. And see here, whenever we just receive it any function, so here it is the exact print function under the defined thing. And dear friends, the parameter name does not have the default value and it is required, so it is a mandatory so during a call. And on the other hand, the parameter message has a default value of good morning, so it is optional during a call. So if a value is provided, it will override the default value. So if you are just providing this, it will overwrite it. If you are not providing, it would automatically take this as a default. Okay, so that is how you can just provide this equal symbol, which we just say Python default argument that is provided in the definition of a function. And any number of argument in a function can have a default value, but once we have a default argument, all the argument to its right must also have default values. So this means to say non-default arguments cannot follow default arguments. For example, if we had defined the function header or as like above this, see here, if we just make instead of name as a first argument, if we just provide the message is equal to good morning, okay, and the name as to the second, and if we are just making it as a non-default, yeah, surely we would just get an error. Okay, let me just see it in the second example. But anyhow, here it is the one which we want to give an example of this equal symbol, which is a default argument. See here, dear friends, the first one, only the name has been provided, and as it is defaultly, we are having message is equal to good morning. So it just been resulted. And see here for the second example, how do you do? Yeah, it is overwritten, and the next one, the good night, that is also overwritten. And when we just have this one, which we just say we call a function with an argument, it will be considered that value only. And see here, even here it is the one name is equal to everyone. It is the exact default value. And if I just provide print hello and with the name, yeah, it is just going to make hello everyone. And if the name is already provided, it has been the overwritten. So hello Devi, or here if we I didn't provide any value to that of argument, yeah, it is just going to take it as a default one. And when we just make we pass to that a function, then the function will consider that value only. If we do not pass any argument, it will just be considered as everyone. Okay, so that is how the above example is. And let me just take the another example. See here, dear friends, we are having a function defined with an name as employee data. And here what we are just having as an argument is name, employee ID, age, and company is equal to ap3-solutions.com. And see here, totally we are just having four arguments. And here threes are fixed and one is the exact variable, which is the default variable. Okay, and here if we want to just give the details of name, And employee ID, yeah, here employee ID it has to be specified, and what is the age and the company name. If you are providing the company name, yeah, it is going to be overwritten. If you are not just providing the company name, yeah, it has to be the default variable which is assigned when on function is defined. And see here, dear friends, if you're just providing, yeah, bill, and it is 101, it is the employee ID, and 21 is the age. And as we are providing the exact company website, that is samsung.com, yeah, it is provided here. And see here we are just want to print a separator. And next, for the second data, we are just giving the name, employee ID, and age. We didn't provide the company, as here it is the default. The same is being executed. Okay, next let me just move on to the Python keyword argument. See, actually keywords arguments are related to the function call. So a keyword argument is an argument value passed to the function preceded by the variable name and as equal sign. So this allows you to skip arguments or place them out of order, because the Python interpreter is able to use the keyword provided to match the values with parameters. Let me just make it by using an example. See here, dear friends, as here we can see, we can mix positional argument with the keyword argument during the functional call. But we must keep it in mind that keyword argument must follow positional argument. Okay, so having let me just see it with this example. So greet Eric, and how do you do? And we know already there was a message that good morning. So here we are just giving the name and the message. And see here, dear friends, okay, Eric, and how do you do? And see, two keyword argument, both or we are just giving it as a variable where name is equal to Eric and message is equal to how do you do. And next one, if we just makes here a message how do you do and name is equal to Eric, even though here, but there was exactly the pattern how it has to be, yeah, here it is was the greet. Okay, I just scroll it down above. See here, this is the exact definition of function. Hello, and name here it is to be there, and here it is the message the next comes. So we know the exact placeholder value, so with that this would be executed accordingly. And here one is positional and one is a keyword argument, where this one is the fixed as a Eric, and where the variable which is we are giving as a default variable here how do you do. So that is what here it just been executed. And see here, dear friends, having a positional argument after keyword argument will results in error. So for example, so let me just have the functional call as, see here, let me have this one. Okay, so here we are just making hello Eric, how do you do? So this is what our exact exact result at which we just expect. But here when we specify name is equal to Eric and how do you do, where this positional argument which just comes after the keyword. So here after keyword argument it will just going to be resulted into a error where the positional argument follows keyword argument. Okay, so that is how here it just makes. Okay, let me just make one more example. See here, this is the exact function call which we just want to make the full name. So here two parameters are there, first name and last name. When you want to make the execution, it has to be as like first name and a space concatenated and then a concatenation with the last name. So this is what it has to return as a full name. And see here, dear friends, when I just want to call this, the first name is equal to Ajanta, last name is Devi. I have just giving two parameters, and with just we are just making the keyword arguments. Okay, so see here the output we receives. Okay, and next one is the example which I have already specified you. That is the order doesn't matter, only the value which you just specify, whether it is the thing name or the message, or here it is number 2 or number 1, whatever be, how it has to be made is the placeholders only. Okay, so see here, if you're just giving the two numbers, and if we want to add the two numbers and the returning the total, yeah, here it is resulted with the value 5. Okay, next one, yeah, this example also we have just seen it often. That is, want to evaluate the current age. Okay, let me just specify the current year as 2019 and the birth year as 1819. So what would be the age? Yeah, it is 200. Okay, next one. Here too, we are just having a reminder as a function call, where dividend and divisor is there, and it has to return the x value, which is the reminder of that expression. And see here, when we just make use of 10 comma 3, which is see here, 10 comma 3 is the exact dividend and divisor. So even though we can just specify as like a keyword argument, like divisor is equal to 3 and dividend is equal to 10. So in that way, we can also expect the exact reminder which we want to be executed. And see here, here it is the exact resultant. Okay. Next one. Here also, see here, dear friends. One more function, as we have already seen it in the previous, as like first name and last name. Here it is just providing the name and the surname. Okay, and one is say actually in keyword argument, order of argument is not matter, but the number of argument must match. Otherwise, we will get an error. So this was already I have specified. And while using the keyword and positional argument simultaneously, we need to pass first argument as positional argument and then the keyword argument. Otherwise, we will get syntax error. And see here, dear friends, let me just first see how this happens. The first one is name and second one is the surname. So the first would be as like Frank and Harper, but where the second message from, that is the function call, see here, the first one is surname and second one is name. So here it has to be as a Greta Clear. So when on making the execution, then we can just see actually, and it is also the order is not matter, only the thing it just specified the placeholder. And yeah, as I have already specified, if we need to pass first argument as positional and second to be the keyword argument, and let me just make it as an let me just make it as an opposite, so that we expect something to be an error model. Yeah, see here, this is what the Frank and Harper. So the Frank and Harper, which is the message, is first it has to be a first name and last name. So hello Frank Harper, yeah, here it would be executed. And where then it comes the second one, yeah, here also it would just gives the output. But when coming to this one, see here, actually positional argument should follows the keyword argument, and should not the keyword argument should not come first. Okay, so if it's so, it just shows an error, that is position argument should follows the keyword argument. Okay, fine. Let me just see the next one, that is Python arbitrary or variable length argument. See, dear friends, actually sometimes we do not know in advance the number of arguments that will be passed into a function. So Python allows us to handle this kind of situation through function calls with an arbitrary number of arguments. So we can pass any number of arguments to this function. Internally, all these values are represented in the form of a tuple. So in the function, we use an asterisk before the parameter name to denote this kind of argument. Let me just see it with an example. Here it is the one. We have called the function with multiple arguments, and these arguments get wrapped up into the tuple before being passed into the function. Okay, so see here, dear friends, this is the exact function that is defined as we are just going to have star and numbers, that is multiple times. So we are just going to greet so many persons or so many values in according to this attribute, and each and every time this can be in the name of ranges. Okay, or ranges, or even though it can be as like a number of things which comes into the of tuple. Okay, and see here, I want to greet Gary, Hank, Ivan, and John. So each and every time I'm just going to make it which is in the for loop functionality. And see here, each and every time when the exact names is followed and it was being passed into the function. Okay, and next, dear friends, kindly have a look of it. That is, inside the function we use for loop to retrieve all the arguments back, and to the same thing here also we have used the same thing in another example, that additional in the sense, here n number of additions we can make use of it. And what is the total, that is, we have already defaultly initiated with 0, and what is the numbers we are just providing, that has to be summed up and it has to be returned, or here it has to return, print the output of that summation. And if we pass no argument, that is 0 argument, already we have just total is equal to 0, that is what the initiation, so it is just returning the 0. And if we are just passing any values, see here, we are having 5 parameters, where this parameter it would just gives the total number of this 5 values, and next it just being, even though if it is in a float or an integer, yeah, it is also being summed up, and let me just see the output executed. Okay, this is how it happens. Okay, one more example where we have been provided with a return statement, and this returns which us like to the same of total is equal to total plus number, where the same thing we have just specified in the previous example. And here, if it is providing any n number of arguments, the same thing here, as to that of here it is a summing of the numbers, so as like that same, it just returns the sum of the number or the value which is given into that of parameters. Okay, next is the default and arbitrary number of the parameters in the function. And see here, dear friends, here we are just having the argument 1, and here it is of a variable which is an of a tuple, and this one, see, when I'm just passing on to this argument, and if we are having how many arguments or how many things that varies according to this tuple. If it is no parameters is passed into the second one, which is as like an argument, and it just takes it as a default one. And see here, dear friends, here we just want to output is, it is exactly a description, and we are just going to pass the only the argument. And if we are having the variable tuple as an arbitrary function or a number of parameters, if we are having, yeah, it is just going to be there in the for loop, and the returns the exact value. If there is no, yeah, it is not going to return anything. And see here, dear friends, here when on just calling with a single argument, yeah, it is just going to print only this argument. And if you are just going to have all such of things with within this tuple, yeah, each and everything it just going to print as like 70, 40, 20, and respectively with this 30, 60, 90, and 120. Let me just see it with an example or after execution. See here, dear friends, the first one is output is only 10 has been given, and the next one output is 70, 40, and 20. So this is how the exact execution be. Okay, and next comes the same thing. You can just make use of even by teaming up with so many number of arguments, where the first one is the default things, and the next it comes the keyword argument, and that is to be with concatenated with that is prefixed with asterisk symbol. Okay, and see here, whatever be the number of arguments present into this as like a function call, it is just going to execute it. And last but not least, functions as a parameter of another function as a parameter of another function. And see here, dear friends, this is square number of n. Yeah, here we are just having only one argument, that is only one parameter, where this returns the n into n. And see here, dear friends, we are having one more function, that is do something, where I want to just have f and x, and where it has to return the f of x. And here what is the do something is here we are having two function. One is square number and then 3. And here this square number, what it just going to do, it is just going to have this as a one among the function call. Okay, so this is what the parameter, and this parameter is a call of another function, where here we are just going to have the 3 as a number, and this 3 what it just going to have, it is the number as like 3 into 3. That is